So what is the process? Well, there are four areas that we need to cover in this. First is luring, which is taking a treat in your hand, like so. And I always like to use small treats because you want to make sure that as you're feeding your dog, that you're not making them full. You will then go and you will lure them into the position without using any verbal cue. This is important because dogs don't know English or any language that you're actually speaking. So just remember that. They don't come programmed. So we're going to be luring them into the position or the behavior that we want them to actually do. And from there, we will then mark the behavior. And marking that can be either using a clicker or what I do, which is using a verbal cue. I use the word yes because it's short, it's simple, and it's not something I'm using with him all the time. So if I were to go and say, good dog, good Athos, all the time, to him to mark the behavior, he's not going to understand when I just say that to him in general. So I try to make sure that you guys know that. Afterwards, you will then give them. So you always mark the behavior first before you actually give them the reward of the treat. So a simple way of doing this is in sit. You would, hey, buddy. You would lure them back into the sit position without telling them, say yes, and mark. Now he happens to know sit, so I don't need to mark it right before it actually happens. But normally what you would do is actually mark the behavior as he starts to sit down. The other thing when we're going through the first process of luring is just to make sure that you're getting to 90%. So I always use the rule of 10. The easiest thing is going, I did it 10 times in a row. 9 times out of 10, my dog understood what I was doing. And so I marked it. And I can then move forward to the second, which is learning the position, still using a lure, but learning that phrase. So for sit, I would then start to say sit as I put the lure over his head. So after I do sit and put the lure over his head, I mark the behavior again, and then I reward. Then we go and we do that for about, again, that 90% mark. And then we move forward to generalization. What I mean by this is dogs don't naturally generalize a behavior that you're teaching them. So if you are in a room with no distractions, adding distractions will make it a lot harder for them to recall the behavior. Or a duration. Changing duration is also the part of the 3Ds. And just so you know, the 3Ds are distance, duration, and distraction. When we go to generalize, this is where you take it into different areas. Now, when you're going outside, starting to go outside, you want to make sure that you control either the distance that you do something or the duration that you're doing something. Because again, that's a lot of information that your dog's trying to process to please you, for lack of better terms. Once you get that through generalizing the behavior, you're then going to go on to maintenance. Maintenance just means that one day your dog might have sit perfectly down. He does it 99% of the time. And then one time, like a couple times in a row, he's just not doing it the way you want. He's not holding a position, and that's okay. What we do at this stage or any stage is we go back to kindergarten. So you go back to the bases, which means that you step back from just telling him a cue. You might go back to luring him with the cue a couple times. You don't have to do it 10 times. You might just need to do it 3 or 4 times for him to remember the behavior. And then you go back to your normal process of just saying, hey, sit, to get him to go back to it. So what I would say is that training is an ongoing process and it's always molding. Just like in anything else in our lives, we have to maintain it in order for it to be fresh in our minds.